Okay. All right, we're live with Room Review for this Wednesday. This is the 5th episode, and today we will be looking at a space that you'd walk in and you'd think, I can't change anything here. It's just beautiful, because it is. It's a beautiful space. But I'm going to go through it. There were a few things that the owner wanted me to look at and wanted ideas for. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. So without further ado, let me see if I can get this going. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen. Oops, that's not it. Get rid of that. That's not what I want to do. Hold on. Oh, one of these days I'll get it. Close that. Okay. Then I want to share my screen, and then we will do this movie. Okay, here we go. All right. Room review, yahoo! All right. So this space, as I mentioned, is really a beautiful space. They live in a gorgeous home, and she's done a beautiful job putting things together. She just wants to change some things up. So here we are looking at the living room. That's what we're going to be looking at here, the great room, living room. So as we're coming around at the beginning here, the first thing that I would say is I feel like the space over the credenza is a little busy. Like maybe that picture, the painting, and the lamps are a little much over there. So I would look at maybe putting something a little simpler there. Because it's across from windows, you could put a mirror there, and maybe taking the lamps away unless she really uses those lamps. And if she does, then maybe just putting a simpler piece of art there. One thing I really like is how the chandelier makes sparkles on the wall. You see how it's reflecting kind of dappling light all over the wall? I think that's really beautiful. Okay, so here I'm showing maybe take out those lamps and maybe put a different piece in there that's a little simpler, because there's a lot of pattern in the room. There's a lot going on. I love the plants over there too. I like the wrought iron details that kind of mirror the wrought iron up above on the balcony. I think that's a beautiful detail that they've added there. And as I mentioned, I really like the plants. This throw right here is very nice. However, it starts making things a little bit busy. It goes great with everything, but maybe add in some solid. These are some solid pillows in a color that she's looking to add more of. And since there is so much pattern in the room, adding either a solid throw or some solid pillows, maybe even doing lumbar type pillows in those patterned chairs, which I think are gorgeous. And those are great chairs to have in a room with a tall ceiling, to have chairs with a little bit more height to them. I like the little bud vase there, bringing in the color as well. You could even look at doing a plant over in the corner there behind the chair. Okay, so this picture in the back here, it's very similar to the wall color. It kind of falls in, and you could do something round there to kind of change up the energy, because everything has a lot of angles to it. I like how the table in the middle there has round edges to it in between the two chairs. I do like how she's done that a lot. Looking at, I think we're going to talk about the bookshelves now. This was one area that she really wanted to ask for some help in. And these bookshelves, they have mirrors behind them, which is great because it does reflect light, and it brings more light into that area, and you can see things in it better actually. But you do have to be careful about making it too busy, because it will be reflecting double what you have there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the rules for bookshelves, and maybe I'll do a tutorial later on it. But when looking at bookshelves, you want to pick a color palette. So it looks like they've done that. She's got kind of a Thomas, love it. Kind of the coral color, and then some photographs with some pretty simple frames, metal and black. And I think we're going to talk about the coffee table real quick right here. I love what she's done here on the coffee table. It's beautiful. One thing she could do to change it up would be to do a round tray instead of a square tray. That way she could also maybe stack some books, and then she's got a little bit of variation in the shape on her table. But I love the table, and I love what she's done there with the tray. So coming back to the shelves, we will want to arrange things like things together. Like I see how she's got kind of the coral vases are on in a couple different places. I would group them all together and make them a little grouping. And then maybe group like the stone head and then the tea set kind of together. You want to vary the heights, and you want to group things and have a color palette that you're sticking to. So short of pulling everything off and redoing it, which maybe we'll do, and then we'll post a picture. I don't hate what she's done here at all, but it could definitely be more interesting and more easier to look at, I think. Also stacking books in different directions, like stacking them on their ends and on their bases, like you see here, and kind of mixing it up. Also a trailing plant. I love putting a trailing plant in a bookshelf. It just kind of adds more life and dimension to it, especially with that mirror behind it there. I think that would be a cool detail to add. Okay, coming over here, another piece that she was wondering about is this big expanse between the two sets of windows. They have a gorgeous porch out there, but then there's a giant space here in between the two sets of windows. And really, it's something that you see when you walk into the house from the front door. That's kind of what's straight ahead. Although you also see out the beautiful windows, I don't think it's as noticeable as she thinks it is. You can see the chandelier is sparkling up the wall again, which I think is really cool. Okay, so that's kind of, that didn't really come across, but you can do something like this either with molding or with painting something like a trompe l'oeil kind of thing to make it look like, or actually create architectural details. That's something that can reduce the expanse. You could just do it texturally with, some molding and just create kind of a paneled look. These are examples of fabric panels. These have been stretched. They probably made these. Here's a framed antique piece of textile. But getting big pieces of textiles, actually I think there are two stacked here, so you can do a lot with that. You could do a big triptych type thing. Now it won't fill up the whole space, but you could do either a really cool piece of art maybe that's printed on multiple canvases, or I like the idea of having it be kind of a really subtle one, because you don't want it to take away from your room. You want it to be interest, but you don't want it to rule the space. So something like this is very subtle. Or you could do beautiful, very kind of almost pale black and whites. This is a family home, and they have a number of beautiful children, and they could do something very, very lovely on that wall with big canvas, even if they're printed kind of faintly. Or have someone do portraits of each of your kids doing something they love to do. I also love the idea of a living wall, and maybe painting some kind of stencil, but adding plant features to it as well. And that could be kind of a big expanse, but if you sectioned an area to do it, I think a living wall could be a really interesting, between the two windows, which are outdoors. You could also bring in a little bit of the wrought iron that is across the room, do a couple of medallions along there, or like architectural details like gears or something like that. I think those always look kind of neat too. That way it's kind of a design, but it's not taking away from the rest of your decor. So she asked about any other colors to bring in, and I would suggest blues, like maybe bringing in either kind of more of an aqua, because the brown walls and the tans and the corals, bringing in a little more solid coral to really foil everything, and then maybe some navy and some aqua I think would be beautiful here. She could even look at bringing in an accent rug at some point instead of the more neutral rug that she has, and that would really pop the space. I love that she has neutral furniture, because the furniture can then be morphed into whatever you want it to be, with pillows or throws. I love a neutral sofa because that is just such a great backdrop for whatever you want to do. And those cute little ottomans there, those have a lot of pattern going on, but they have the accent color as well. So kind of simplifying things a little bit, bringing in a couple more accent colors. Oh, one other thing I was going to mention, if they ever wanted to do something like a mantle piece there, that could possibly do something to kind of bring the focal point to the fireplace there in that room. So thank you for joining me. I will see you next week at the same time, and I will have the notes from this. I did not have them ready in time to review with you now, but I will have the notes from this either attached or in the Facebook group, so I will let you know. Thanks so much for joining me. Let me get back to myself here. I do have a couple more things to show you. Just look a little bit. I've got some color swatches of some things that I thought would be nice to add. I mean, these are kind of the corally shades, a little bit more rosy maybe. And then some navies and some aquas would be great to bring into that. Even some indigo type things. I love this pillow. This is antique textile. That I just love. It's tiny, but it really, it's got a story on it pretty much that I can't remember, but I could look it up. And the indigo navy is just a great thing to have in your decor. So thank you for joining me, and I will, as I said, put the notes and the comments from this up in my group, and I will have them posted somewhere as well since I didn't get to have them here. So thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you next week on Room Review. Now I have to figure out how to stop this. There we go. Quit Ecamm Live. Bye.